They didn't tow my car. They didn't slap me with a fine. They didn't argue about mailbox colors or grass length. They took my children. The Homeowners Association, folks with clipboards and a hunger for control, decided my house fell under their little kingdom's rules. They said we were breaking a 55 plus only rule that didn't apply to us in the first place. I'm not just a homeowner, I'm a dad. And yes, I also happen to be a federal judge. That day they found out exactly what that means. Welcome to my channel. If you love insane HOA revenge stories, hit that subscribe button because this one is wild. If you're over 60 and watching this, you've seen a lot and you've earned your peace and quiet. You know the smell of a good morning, the coffee brewing, the toast popping, the calm before the sun breaks the blinds. You've carried kids and grandkids through long nights and early mornings. Maybe you've lived in a neighborhood where somebody with a badge that isn't a real badge thinks they run the place. If so, you'll understand this feeling in my gut when I open that letter. A cold, hard knot. The kind of knot you get when somebody crosses a line you don't let anybody cross. Your family. I'm Daniel Brooks. Friends call me Dan. My kids are Mason and Lily, 10 and 8. They're both wiry, loud, funny, and too brave for their own good. We live in a 3-bedroom colonial setback under 2 old maples that drop leaves like they're getting paid. It's not fancy, but it's ours. When I bought the place, I made sure of one thing. No HOA. I checked the county maps twice, sat with my attorney, and circled the boundary lines with a yellow highlighter like I was prepping a case. Our property wasn't in the HOA. We were safe, or so I thought. Morning of the mess, it all felt normal. Lily was at the kitchen table coloring birds with a fistful of crayons. Mason was shoveling eggs into his mouth and talking about his soccer tournament. I skimmed case notes between sips of coffee, circling a detail that would matter in court later that week. Then I heard the mail slot. A heavy envelope slid onto the floor with a mean clack, like it wanted to be heard. "Another brochure?" Mason asked. "Looks like a thick one," I said. I picked it up and felt the weight of bad news. The paper was heavy, the kind that tries to look official enough to scare you. I slid it open and saw the words, "Final warning, violation, immediate eviction. Remove all unauthorized minors within 24 hours. My first thought wasn't elegant. You have got to be kidding me. I called my attorney, Noah Reed, a straight shooter who doesn't dance around nonsense. "Noah," I said, "Maple Ridge Estates HOA is telling me my own kids can't live in my home because it's a 55-plus community." He chuckled the way you do when you think it's a prank. "Dan, we went over this during closing. You are outside their boundaries by a good several hundred feet. They can't touch you. I'll send a cease and desist, and that'll be that." "That better be that," I said. I hung up and tried to shake it off. We dealt with petty before. A volunteer who told my lawn guy the mower was too loud at noon. A letter about an American flag being too large on Memorial Day when I wasn't even on their rolls. Some busybody taking photos of my driveway. But this, claiming my kids were unauthorized minors, that had a bite to it. Noah fired the letter off before lunch. I took Mason and Lily to school, did my day in court, and tried not to give that envelope rent-free space in my head. It was ridiculous, it was harassment, and it was over, or so I let myself believe. When I came home that evening, the house felt wrong. You know that feeling when you step into a room and the air has gone flat? No TV, no dishes clinking, no laughter tumbling down the hall. Just quiet. My heart started its own little drum solo. Backpacks were by the door. Shoes lined up where I asked them to line up, but no kids. I called Mason, straight to voicemail. I called Lily's little watch. Nothing. I rang their friends' parents. No one had seen them after school. That knot in my gut turned to ice. I dialed 911 and tried to keep my voice steady. I've been on the bench a long time. I've watched good folks keep their cool in bad moments. It's different when it's your kids. The dispatcher was calm and crisp. "Sir, are you reporting missing children?" "Yes," I said, and I had to swallow hard to get the word out. Within 10 minutes, patrol cars rolled up, lights sweeping the street like they were painting over the evening. Officers stepped in, respectful, careful. They asked to look around, and I said yes to everything. "Tell me what you need. Take the pictures you need. Ask me what you need. I answered the same questions twice because I wanted to be useful, not a wreck. One officer outside called to his partner and held up another note he'd found taped to my door. The same heavy paper, the same ugly tone. Only 4 lines this time. They wrote that they had taken steps to ensure compliance. My children, they said, would be held in a safe location until I removed them from the house. Let me say this plain. I have sentenced men who did fewer terrible things than that. I've seen traffickers. I've seen people who thought they owned other human beings. But I had never seen a homeowners association write down on paper that they seized 2 children. The officers' faces shifted from confusion to red-hot anger. One of them, a young guy with a solid jaw and a father's eyes, said, "Sir, they just admitted to taking your kids." "Yes," I said, "and they have no idea who they picked a fight with." Neighbors came out onto porches, curious, concerned. Most of them are good people. Retired teachers, nurses, a few vets, folks who've worked hard their whole lives. Some heads look away when trouble's in the street. That night, a lot of eyes locked on mine. I saw worry. I also saw fear. You learn a lot about a community when the lights spin and the sirens go quiet. May Whitaker shuffled up the walk, a small woman with white curls and a soft sweater, and the kind of presence that makes you think of a Sunday pot roast. She squeezed my forearm and leaned in. "Judge Brooks," she whispered, "I saw something odd an hour after lunch. 2 men in suits I've never seen. They walked those little ones out of your house. Not a fight, but not happy faces either. They put him in a black SUV. It went toward the Maple Ridge clubhouse." I thanked her and looked at the lead officer. "Let's go," I said. We pulled up to the clubhouse with 2 patrol cars, and I swear the building itself looked smug. Fresh mulch, new door. The flag out front hung limp in the still air. Inside, behind a big desk too big for a community room, was Pamela Granger, president of Maple Ridge Estates, HOA. The pearl necklace, the tight smile, the kind of person who loves a rule more than a neighbor. "Judge Brooks," she purred, like we were friends meeting at a country club. "What a surprise. Where are my children?" I set the note on her desk like a warrant. My voice was too calm, even to my own ears. "They're in interim care," she said, tilting her head, "while we address your violation." She talked like she was reading from a script. "Our community is 55 plus, and your unauthorized minors pose a compliance issue." "Pamela," I said, "my house is not in your community, and there's no universe where you get to hold my kids." I turned to the lead officer, who had that jaw set so tight it could crack a walnut. "You hearing this?" He cleared his throat. "Ma'am, detaining children is a felony. We need their location right now." She clucked her tongue. "Officer, this is a civil matter." "You wouldn't understand our bylaws." I leaned forward. "You're confusing bylaws with law." "Those are not the same thing." Something in her eyes flickered. For the first time, she looked a hair unsure, but she still smiled. "They're safe," she said, "and they'll stay safe until you comply." I looked at the officer again. "We're done playing," I said. "Cuff her." His partner stepped forward, and Pamela finally cracked. "Wait," she said, breath trembling. "They're at Brookside Christian Academy. Room 210. We were out the door and back into the night. The school was 10 minutes away. I don't think the tires touched the ground. The officer radioed ahead. By the time we hit the parking lot, there were lights in the windows and a custodian holding the door for us like he'd been waiting. Room 210. I'll remember that number when the rest of the world goes fuzzy. I pushed the door open so hard it bounced. There were my kids at 2 desks, sitting small and scared, and a woman in a navy suit who tried to block me with a hand and a lecture about temporary guardianship. "Absolutely not," I said. "Those are my children." I pulled them into my arms, and for a second the world made sense again. Lily buried her face in my shirt. Mason squeezed my ribs like he was trying to crack them. I kissed their hair and breathed again. The officers moved the navy suit out of the way and, after a very short conversation, put her in handcuffs. On the walk out, Pamela's words about rules and compliance and community standards echoed in my head. Folks, I love a good rule when it's honest and keeps people safe. But rules are supposed to serve people, not the other way around. Back home, after an officer checked every room, and I checked them again myself, The kids fell asleep in my bed with the dog at their feet. I stood at the window and watched the street. You ever stand watch over your own house like that, making quiet promises? I promised my children I'd never let anybody touch them again. I promised my neighbors I'd clean up the mess that had rotted under their feet. And I promised the folks at that clubhouse I'd bring every ounce of proper law down on them. The legal war started at first light. Noah came over in jeans and a polo, a stack of forms under his arm, and the kind of focused look that means he's about to get somebody's attention. We filed a federal complaint that morning. Unlawful detainment, conspiracy, child endangerment, fraud. We named every board member who signed off on anything that looked like interim guardianship. We served notices before lunch. Then we did something that nobody expects when they spend their days swinging bylaws like they're swords. We looked at the money. If you've lived long enough, you know, follow the money. We subpoenaed bank statements, vendor contracts, maintenance invoices, legal bills, all of it. We asked for the emails. We asked for the texts. We got records from the management company that kept their books. What shook loose looked like termites under a floorboard. There were fake invoices from a landscaping company that didn't exist. There were legal fees paid to a lawyer who never filed a single pleading. There were security improvements that were really a camera pointed at a particular neighbor's window. Money flowed from homeowners to shell companies to private accounts. It wasn't just bad, it was mean. We froze their accounts before dinner. That's a long day when you're used to paperwork taking weeks. But it wasn't just me. It was a team of honest cops, a no-nonsense judge on duty, and a pair of prosecutors who've taken on worse. Once the accounts were locked, the board went quiet. It's funny how folks stop puffing their chests when the money runs out. That evening, the smear campaign started. Flyers showed up on doorsteps. They said I was using my position to bully a volunteer board. Anonymous posts popped up on the neighborhood Facebook group with my head photoshopped onto a dictator's body. Real classy. A couple of the die-hard HOA loyalists, folks who put their violation letters in frames like merit badges, started whispering that the board never meant to hurt anyone, that the kids were supervised, that I was making it political. If you've ever stuck your neck out for the right thing, you know how this part goes. When bullies lose money and power, they try to win with gossip. I grew up in a town where your name is your handshake. Most of my neighbors did too. And when the truth came out, when they saw their own payments listed on ledgers that ended up in board members' pockets, those whispers turned into outrage. Good people, the kind who mow an elderly neighbor's lawn without talking about it, stood taller. Folks started sending me screenshots of emails they'd gotten. Threats, fines, weird warnings about porch lights. The mess wasn't just mine anymore. It was ours. News trucks rolled in next. Local HOA accused of kidnapping children, the ticker said. I don't care who you are or how old you are. No one wants to see their street turn into a news backdrop. But sometimes light is the best disinfectant. Reporters asked questions. Residents answered them. Pamela hired a lawyer who said a lot of words that didn't mean much. It didn't play well. Two things happened fast. One, the county and the IRS both opened investigations. You'd be amazed how quickly taxmen find their calculators when they sniff undeclared income. Two, the board tried to cut a deal. Their attorney called Noah with what he introduced as a creative solution. They'd admit to procedural mistakes with the kids if we dropped the fraud claims. I asked Noah to put the phone on speaker and told the man, very politely, that the only deal I'd consider was one where the guilty told the truth under oath and returned every dime. The phone went quiet. Foreclosures followed. When you spend other people's money like it's your own and then you get caught, life gets expensive. One by one, the board's homes went on the market. I didn't cheer. Well, maybe I did a little, but I kept my head. I bought a few quietly through a trust. Why? Because I wanted the vote that would end Maple Ridge Estates HOA for good. When we had enough proxies and titles, we called a community-wide vote. It wasn't close. People were tired. Tired of fines, tired of notes on doors, tired of fear. The tally was over 90% to dissolve the HOA. I hired a crew to take down the big sign at the neighborhood entrance. You know the one, stone pillars, gold letters, a name that sounds like a breakfast cereal. We took it down piece by piece, no gloating, just work. The next day, I bought the old clubhouse at auction and put a new sign over the door. Maple Ridge Community Center, open to all. We hung a basketball hoop. We set up a card table where May plays bridge with 3 of the sharpest ladies you'll ever meet. We started a little after-school homework corner with a bowl of apples on the desk and a retired math teacher who explains fractions like they're magic. Now, I could have stopped there. I had my home and my kids safe. I had a neighborhood breathing easy. But some things are like a splinter. If you don't get the whole thing out, it keeps hurting. I took what we learned and went to folks I trust at the State House. We sat at a long oak table and I told them the whole story: kidnapping, fraud, surveillance, fake vendors. I brought paperwork. I brought photos. I brought 2 residents who had tears in their eyes thinking about how close they came to losing their homes over trumped-up fees. We drafted legislation that had a simple backbone: shine a light and impose consequences. Mandatory third-party audits for HOAs above a certain size. Caps on fines. Clear, fast appeal processes handled by an independent body, not the same board that hands out the fines. And most important, criminal liability where there's criminal behavior. If you use an HOA office as a mask for theft or intimidation, you don't get to hide behind community standards. You get to stand in front of a judge. I testified. I didn't grandstand. I talk like I'm talking to you now, plain and steady. We put retirees and young families in front of the committee to tell them what it feels like to be shaken down over planter boxes, or to get a letter on the day of your brand new grandbaby's baptism telling you your decorations violate holiday uniformity. I watched strong people tremble in a microphone. Then I watched the votes go up. Green light after green light. Meanwhile, Noah and a few reporters we trusted started pulling the thread on something bigger: the property management company that trained Pamela and her pals. The more we tugged, the more the sweater unwound. This wasn't just one HOA. There were dozens, hundreds, run with the same playbook. Keep books muddy, use fear to enforce compliance, nudge vendors to kick back, and lean on the private contract shield when anyone asks questions. Whistleblowers reached out. If you've lived long enough, you know there's always someone who can't sleep at night with a secret squirming in their head. We got emails. We got training manuals. We got lists of problem homeowners that read like enemies lists. We got internal messages cheering high fine collection months like bonuses at a bank. The story hit regional news, then national. Cameras moved from our street to boardrooms. Executives said nice things about community and compliance, but their eyes told the truth. They were worried. Regulators called. More audits started. Some companies cleaned house. Others shut their doors before anybody could knock. Back on our block, life settled into a new normal. Mason scored his first goal of the season and ran to the sideline to point at me like he just won the World Cup. Lily decided she wanted to take piano and marched into May's Bridge Club to announce it like the president. The dog slept in the sunlight by the sliding door and wagged when anyone said, "Good boy." Simple things. Good things. Then a letter arrived with a familiar, heavy feel. I opened it at the kitchen counter with the kids crunching apples beside me. It wasn't a threat, it was a plea. A former board member, one who'd never looked me in the eye during a single meeting, wrote to say she'd lost her job, her house, her reputation, and her savings. She said she was sorry. She said she was desperate. She asked for help finding work. I'm not proud to admit this. I stood there, and my first instinct was to crush the letter into a ball. I remembered Lily's little body trembling in my arms at the school. I remembered Mason asking if the rule lady could come back. I remembered May whispering to me in the dark. But then I took a breath. I set the letter down. I told my kids that sorry means changing what you do next. It doesn't erase what you did before. I didn't call the woman. I didn't rip up the letter either. I put it in a file marked lessons. Some folks will hear that and say I'm soft. Others will say I'm still too hard. Maybe that's the thing about getting a little older yourself. You learn most of life happens somewhere between those two edges. A week later, I got invited back to the State House to watch the final vote on the bill we helped shape. They called it the HOA Accountability Act. It passed. You could feel the room exhale. Later, an aide told me her granddad got fined last year because his bird feeder attracted squirrels, as if squirrels needed help. She hugged me like we were family. We launched something else too, the Homeowners Defense Fund. It's not fancy. It's a handful of lawyers and paralegals and retired professionals who know what a ledger is supposed to look like. We answer calls, we send letters, we show up to hearings with people who can't afford to be there alone. We've gotten fines tossed. We've gotten accounts unfrozen. We've helped neighborhoods vote to dissolve boards that forgot what they were for. You might be thinking, Dan, that's a lot of fighting for a man who just wanted to drink his coffee in peace. You're not wrong, but sometimes peace needs a little muscle behind it. Sometimes it needs somebody to say, enough. If you're over 60 and watching this, here's the part where I talk directly to you. The folks who built these communities brick by brick with your hands, your backs, and your hearts. You know what decency looks like. You know that rules without mercy are just another kind of bully. If someone is pushing you around with a letterhead and a laminated badge, you don't have to take it. You gather your neighbors, you ask for help, and you remember the law's not a stick for the powerful to hit you with. It's a guardrail to keep all of us safe. A few months after the dust settled, we held a cookout in the parking lot of the new community center. Hot dogs, buns, potato salad from May that will make you quit buying the store stuff. Kids on bikes with streamers. Someone brought a little speaker and we played oldies that made everybody sing. Pamela wasn't there, of course. She was where she needed to be, facing the consequences of what she did. I hope one day she understands the difference between service and control. I hope one day she says a real sorry to someone who needs to hear it. Not for me, for her. Toward the end of the night, a neighbor I didn't know well, a quiet man who keeps his yard like a golf green, walked up and shook my hand. I used to think HOAs were like seatbelts, he said, uncomfortable but necessary. But what you showed us is that a seatbelt's good until it's around your throat. He looked out at the kids weaving through the lawn chairs and nodded. This is better. He's right. This is better. Not perfect. Nothing is, but better. There was one last thing I did that I want to tell you about because it matters. I spent a couple weekends with a small team going door to door, not to campaign for anything, not to get my name in anyone's good graces, but to listen. We asked people what they wanted their neighborhood to feel like, not look like. You know what folks over 60 said more than anything? Safe. Not just safe from crime, safe from shame, safe from being embarrassed for how you keep your yard or how fast your grandson runs down the sidewalk or how many wind chimes you like. Safe from being treated like you're a problem that needs to be corrected. We put up a small bulletin board in the community center. Need a hand? Leave a note. Want to help? Leave a number. The first week, someone asked for a ride to a doctor's appointment. 3 people signed up to help. The next week, a widower asked if anyone could take a look at a leaky faucet. A retired plumber came the next morning and refused a dime. That board taught me more about how a neighborhood should work than any binder of bylaws ever could. Do I still get the occasional letter in my mailbox from someone who thinks I'm the guy who destroyed their order? Sure, that comes with standing up. But when I walk my dog in the morning and Lily's piano practice drifts out of the community center window and Mason waves from the basketball hoop we bolted into the asphalt ourselves, I remember why we did all of this. So if you've been sitting on your porch feeling small because of somebody's mean little rule, hear me. You are not small. What we did here isn't special because I'm a judge. It's simple because we were right. We used the law the way it's supposed to be used, to protect people, especially the young and the old. We told the truth. We stood together. We didn't blink when they tried to scare us. And when it was time to celebrate, we celebrated together too. If the folks from Maple Ridge ever decide to write me another letter, and they won't, I know exactly what I'll do. I'll open it, read it, and then I'll walk it down to the community center and stick it up on the bulletin board under a heading that says, "Here's how not to be a neighbor." Then I'll pick up a spatula and flip a few burgers for whoever shows up hungry. As for my kids, they sleep easy now. Every once in a while, Lily asks if the rule lady is still mad at us. I tell her the truth. I tell her that people who use rules to hurt others are always mad about something, but they don't get to decide who we are or how we live. We do. We're neighbors, not subjects. We're a community, not a committee. And we're a family you do not mess with. If you're still here with me, thanks for sticking around. Maybe you've got your own story. Maybe you've got a letter on your kitchen table right now that makes your stomach twist. Maybe you're wondering if you've got the strength to fight it. You do. You've had it all along. Gather your papers, gather your people, and start. I'll be right here cheering for you, and if I can, I'll be right there beside you. Now you know the line. You heard it at the start. If you love stories where everyday folks take their neighborhoods back from bullies with clipboards, you know what to do. I'll keep telling these stories as long as they need telling, because it turns out the best community standard is simple. Be a good neighbor. The rest is noise. This is Daniel Brooks, a dad first and a judge second, signing off from a street that learned how to be a community again. Stay safe, stay kind. And if anyone tries to take your peace, remind them, politely at first, firmly if you have to, that the law belongs to all of us.